I'm Byron. I'm co-founder of App in the Air. It's a popular mobile travel app for frequent flyers. We're over 1 million users right now and on track to hit 3 million by the end of this year and hopefully 10 million next year. And I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks that we explored and found while we are growing our app. I think that if I can share one sentence that you should care about when you leave this presentation is that the most important thing in the mobile app is number of active users that you have. I mean, in business to customer market. The reason for this is that you can buy installs, you can buy downloads, you can make partnerships. But if users do not use your app, you have nothing. So with this introduction, I'll start sharing some of the things we have found. So yeah, App in the Air, we hit the featuring as a best new app in 120 countries worldwide. We were in top travel in the US and other countries. Just to give you a benchmark, it's about 30K downloads per day for you to have a higher ranking than Google Earth or Uber. So, and this was done with almost zero money spent on paid acquisition. So all of the things we achieved were achieved by the things I will share with you today and the things that I will not share with you in any other day. I think you get why. So, but the inspiration for this came when I read a post by the co-founder of Twitter and Medium on the active users, and I come up with a challenge or with a problem that I want to give you. So imagine you've got $1 million to invest, and you should decide between two products. The first product, these are graphs of the downloads per week and active users per week for two products. So please raise your hand if you want to invest in product number one. Who is going to invest in product number one? Okay, about, I think, 10 or 8%. What about product two? Okay, around 90%. The problem is that all of those who said that they would like to invest in product two do not see a problem with the product two. Any ideas what's the problem with product two?
So the download will go down, the active users will go down.
Yeah, but why? Why the active users will go down? Yep.
Because the past users which download, let's say past month's application, didn't use it again next month.
Exactly. You see, the greatest thing is that the second product is growing in downloads, and that's cool. That makes people talk about it. But the problem is that the rate of growth of active users for the product two is really low. Just take a look at there. They have a download for the first week they have around 10K downloads, but only half of them are active users. That means that, for example, when they opened the app, they had it crashed and they never used, but they have the download, but not the active user. Or, for example, they have downloaded the app, opened it, and it says, it asks, for example, it says that it doesn't work in Europe, and you can't use it. So the first product is the product that has a really great retention rate, even though downloads are low, the active users are growing, and that's the kind of product that you would want to build. So I'm fond of systems approach, and I try to structure what's happening in the app according to systems. And there are basically two processes in every system. The first is the positive feedback loop, which means that if one metric is growing, and that leads to the other metric which grows. For example, metric 2. There is a back loop that makes the metric 2 growing lead to metric 1 growing. And you have this reinforcing loop, like you have when an avalanche of snow is coming over a mountain. So these processes are really present in the app. The first is the App Store loop. Well, that's what I called it. So the idea is pretty straightforward. The more users finding your app and driving even more downloads, which eventually increases your install base and visibility. So it's really simple. Well, at least it sounds like that. If you can make this loop working, this reinforcing loop, you'll have your app working. And the most important question is, how do you make it work? Let me share some of the tips. The first is the thing we had in the app. So we have this screen. In order to use an app, you should add some flight. So you can track it, you get information about delays, gate changes, you get in-airport navigation, and all the stuff that you need on your travel. And we had this problem that when the user hit the screen, only 30% of the users that saw the screen never actually added a flight. That was the problem, because if the user does not add the flight, they can't take a look at all the functionality that our app has. And we were exploring why that was happening, and we were tracking what they are actually entering into those search fields. And let me back up a little bit. We're a team of 7 people sitting in Moscow, but actually commuting back and forth from US to Russia. And we think in English, but the problem is that some of our users are thinking in Russian. And can you imagine what they were entering in the search field for the departing airport? They were entering not Domodedovo in English, but rather in Russian. And the problem is that our dictionaries that we have for this autocomplete feature, they were not accepting. Well, we didn't have the translation to Russian, to French, to Spanish, to all the languages that were translated into. And we were just losing 30% of those who downloaded just because of that, just because we were thinking not like our users. Then we came up with this thing, and currently about 95 to 98% are successfully adding. That means that I just a really quick tweak made improved our metrics 30%, almost 30%. That's what I call growth hack. The other thing is App Store optimization, and this is one of the graphs that we had, and you see that we increased the visibility 2 times, and you know what was the change in the keywords that we used? It was really slight change. Initially we had the keywords were flights and airports, but the problem is that if we use the singular form, which is flight and airport, that makes more people find our app and actually eventually download. And this increased our visibility of our product 2 times. The reason I'm sharing this is to stretch the importance of the tracking your visibility in the App Store and testing all the things that are available. For example, you can, since App Store has only 100 characters for the keywords part, But if you use those keywords in the title, you don't need to duplicate them in the keyword, thus saving time and characters for other words. And this is why our app in the App Store sounds like App in the Air, Track, Flights, Flight Tracker, and Airport Guide. I'm using the keywords and I'm saving the space for the other keywords. The other thing we were doing is, sorry, wrong. Oops. Okay. So the things that improve the App Store visibility are actually keywords. Like I said, please don't enter spaces between the keywords because you lose characters, guys. So you need to localize, and this actually improves the download rates in a particular region around 2-3 times. And there are actually 7 recommended languages by Apple that you really need to translate your app into. And you should frequently update the app. I recommend at least once a month. So this actually this increases the retention because users are seeing the update, they are installing and they are opening, and what's new is there. And the other thing is that this impacts your positions in the store. Let's move on. The other thing, you know this guy? It's a VP of Apple, and you know which widget he shows in his keynote when they were launching the new iPad Air? It was Up in the Air. You know which ad is this? Commercial, TV commercial of Apple iPad. Yeah, which was shown in 4 countries: US, Canada, UK, and France. And you see which app was featured in this commercial. So I ask you a question: how many apps you know that were featured by Apple in their TV commercial? I think only tens of them. So the reason I'm sharing is that if you use the latest technologies and priorities of the platform, you have a higher chance that you will be featured by this vendor. For example, if I know that tomorrow there will be a launch of Apple Watch, actually today, no, tomorrow, 24th. The moment I found out it, I started building an Apple Watch version of our app, and actually we released it 2 days ago, and let's see what we will have tomorrow. There's a chance that we will be featured. I don't know yet, but I know why I'm thinking about this, and I'm increasing these chances. So you should care about the priorities of the vendor and use the technologies that they are pushing to the market in your app that increases the chance of being featured. And just to give you an idea what featuring means, in 1 week, if you got featured as the best new app in US, you'll get 200K downloads. That translates actually to about $100K for free. $100K marketing for free from Apple, but you should care about their technologies and build a great product. There's another thing that impacts the App Store visibility, and it is actually the negative feedbacks. And we don't like negative feedback and negative reviews, but we know that this is an opportunity to first understand what's bad in your app, and the second is opportunity to contact. The Windows Phone actually has the opportunity to reply to the user and get in contact with the user. Like you see the first review that says after update works good, thanks for great support, and it's 5-star. But actually, initially it was a 1-star because the user experienced a problem we didn't know about. We contacted him, and that's it. The problem comes when you're talking about App Store. App Store does not have an ability to communicate with your users, but I know this little tricky thing that I used in chats. The nicknames that people use in different services are actually the same. So if I'm Biggie in one chat room, most probably I'll be using this same nickname in others. So what do? We just Google the name of the user and we find it, we contact him or her, and we try to understand what was wrong. And eventually we were able to convert that negative review to a positive one. And actually, this is our approach. We Google by nickname, then there are actually users use naming conventions, like for example, the first letter of the first name and the end of the last name. For example, B. Anakov will be Byram Anakov. That's why we can use those. If we can't find it, we enter the country and we figured out that sometimes it helps to find that guy in eBay and contact him and eventually understand what was the problem. And this was funny. We found one guy in a dating app. Actually, he used this nickname as he used for the App Store to leave reviews. We contact him and eventually we improved the app. These are tricks, but the philosophy behind that is that we try to really be personal with the user and understand what bothers him and improve and build on that. This is the first loop, actually. The second loop is the most popular one, but the thing that people sometimes forget is that you can't use that loop for some kind of apps. For example, imagine that this is a viral loop. The idea is pretty straightforward. The more users you have, the more you will have more users sharing a word about your app. The more users share the word about your app, the more non-users find out about the app and eventually install, thus driving the users who share. And so it sounds like it's really simple, you just need this loop to work. But the problem, where's the problem? The problem is between these things. The problem is that only 5% of your users are actually sharing and inviting others. The problem is that when you post a post to the Facebook, only 16% of your friends notice this post. This is algorithms of Facebook. But the problem is that you forgot to include a link in your post. Or for example, if you share to Instagram, links do not work there and you can't click them. So the click rate is really low. And all the things that you really do is try to make this loop works. The other problem is that your app may not be viral at all. For example, you have a AIDS test app. I don't think you want your friends and relatives to know that you just use the app to know if you are HIV positive, right? So you're not building viral loop for that. But how to build a viral loop? And for example, in travel apps, how do we do that? The first thing is that, the thing that we found out, for example, is that if you are not logged in phone settings, this is for iPhone, if you are not logged in the phone settings in Facebook, then when you tap share, which is native iOS sharing added capability, you will not see the Facebook icon in the list of apps that you can share to. But the problem is that you may have a Facebook account. You just didn't enter this because you don't want your users, your Facebook synchronized and all the stuff that happens. So we found this and it was, whoa, we didn't know that. And it came out that when I was sharing this in Palo Alto with the guys from Silicon Valley, they didn't know this either. This is only by analyzing your product, tracking the metrics that you understand that you have a problem here. The other thing was that, tell me, there are two kind of shares from our app. This one, when you're when you plan to go somewhere. So, for example, here I'm planning to go from London to LAX on September 24th. This one is shown when you're landed. When you're landed, and you can share that to Facebook, to Twitter. Tell me which one of these two is more appealing for you to click on the link. Which one? Who thinks that this one? Who feels like this one makes them click on the link and want to install? Exactly. This is exactly the case. The left one actually is the most clickable one. But the problem is that people share photos to Instagram. And do you know what app made a share in this case? We have no idea which one is that. There's no indication that it's up in the air. And the problem is that we started to see comments of the users like, hey, what was that app? And some of them were answering, but some of them not. So you see the upper banner, I'm not sure, the text, the heading that we have, and it says that it's up in the air and where you can download it. It's much better in terms of virality, but it's much lower in terms of wanting to install an app after this kind of share. So you get the idea. You're always experimenting and trying to find the best message, the best medium, and the best audience for that. The last loop is the paid acquisition loop, and basically this is the only one that we're still working heavily on. The idea is pretty straightforward. You have users. The more users you have, the more paying users you have. The more paying users you have, the more paid acquisition budget, marketing budget you have. The more marketing budget you have, the more users you have. So you just need this loop to work, and that's it. But the problem, again, comes in these in transition from one state to the other. And this is what we're doing in this space. The first thing is this. So these are two buy screens that the user used to see in our app. This one offers 5 flights, the real-time alerts for 5 flights for $5. This one for 20 flights for $15, and then 1-year subscription for $25. The other offers 5 flights for $5, 15 flights plus 5 for free for the same $15. So you get the idea. It's the same option actually. It's really the same. And the third has the unlimited part. Any ideas how we increase the purchase value, which is the average revenue from one paying user, purchase value by using this screen instead of this? Any ideas? 2 times. Sorry?
This one could be also should work better because you use the word stay instead of.
It's just my screenshot. I mean, the stay has these banners are looping. So the upper part was the same. You see that it has these circles. That means that they are looping. So the purchase value was 2 times higher just because I said that something is for free, and basically user does not need to make the math. Actually, so I know it sounds strange and actually funny, but the problem is that all of us developers are thinking like developers, and all of users are thinking like users. And the problem is if we do not have empathy for them, we don't get them, and we can't sell them. So, slight change, 2 times purchase value. The other thing that we come up with is this. This needs an explanation. Actually, there was a time that we had this, we applied for a promo code thing, and if the user taps it, we ask for an email, And if the user enters the email, we send out a promo code for real-time alerts for one flight. This is good, and actually we found out that the conversion rate of the user who used the promo code was 4 times higher than the conversion rate of other users. And we were sitting with our team and thinking about, well, okay, we know this thing, so what do we do with that? I mean, what do we do with that thing that those who apply for promo code, they are actually buying with a 4 times higher conversion rate? Exactly, we just gave this out for all of the users from start. And the average conversion rate eventually increased 3 times. Not 4, 3, and I think someone understands why, but in any case, you see, if you give the user to try out the premium features, there's a really high chance of that user eventually buying your product, and this was just a test that we came up with. So, to summarize, this is a little bit difficult, but those guys who know the system dynamics will get me. Those who don't try to understand the whole thing, but focus on that the whole system of growing a mobile app consists of 3 loops. The first is App Store visibility, the one I covered in the beginning, that makes the more installs you have, the higher visibility you have, the more downloads you have, the higher install base you have. This is the first loop. The second loop is a viral loop. The more users you have, the more of them are actually attracting new users by sharing the word about. And basically, paying users share, in our case, for example, share 3-4 times higher. The share rate is 3-4 times higher than the active users. But nevertheless, the second thing is that the more downloads you have, the more active users you have. The more active users you have, the more you have users who share or invite. The more you have, the more downloads, and the highest visibility, and you have 2 loops working. And then comes the third loop. So the more users you have, the more paying users you have, the more income you have. The more income you have, the higher is your marketing budget, which allows you to purchase the downloads and drive the App Store loop and the viral loop. So the really important question that comes up to the beginning of my keynote here is, what is that one element that drives the whole system and make the whole system work? Any ideas? Huh? Sorry? No. What's the element in this system that is most important? When you remove that element or that part of the system, the whole system stops working. Not virality. Users, active users, and that's it. And you remember what I said, that if there's one sentence that I want you to remember after this keynote, is that you should care about active users, about retention and the onboarding of them. That's the message. So this is the most critical factor that we have. If we can drive that, the whole system starts to work. If we can't do that, the whole system just works. That's it. And a couple of recommended literature. Sorry, I don't have any recommendation for marketing. Actually, all of them is about systems. Because I think if you understand the systems, then you understand almost every system. Well, you just don't. That doesn't help you to understand women, but that's fine. I mean, you don't need to that. But actually, you should care about thinking in the systems, understanding how those loops work, and finding those loops in your systems and make them work. That's it. If you want to know more, you just check out my Medium. Actually, it has all the tips and tricks in greater details, the checklist for App Store optimization. And the number one thing I am doing this, I have the job of growing an app, and that's my key priority. But the reason I do this is because I want the following loop to work. If I share my experience, and that helps you. You share your experience, and that helps me. So when we yesterday were sitting with Kirill from Wi-Fi Map, and we're sharing our experience with each other for like almost 2 years. And there are things that I shared that help him grow his app, and there are things that he shares that help me grow my app. So I hope that this loop will work for you and for me.
The question is how to pick up the keywords which the best.
Yeah, there's a whole process, and if you check out the Medium, there's a separate checklist, an Excel, Google Docs spreadsheet, but which is actually built by different mobile app developers that have at least 1 million downloads. So there's a description there, but to keep it short is that you explore what problems your target audience has, and you try to build on that problem. Let me give you one example. The one thing that works really great for us is including an airline name into the keyword. For example, if you search for Aeroflot in Russian App Store, you will see not only Aeroflot's app but ours. But the problem is, the problem that user has that the Aeroflot's app sucks. And this is the same thing with Delta and American Airlines, even though Apple features them in the Apple Watch or different. Just read the reviews and try to use it for one real flight, and you get the idea. So this is how we research. We try to understand what the problem the user has, how the user searches for that, and include that into our keyword. By the way, Google Play is much better than App Store because they do not have keywords. But actually, if you take a look at our description in the Google Play, it has, for example, for Spain, it will says like covers all European airlines and the list of the airlines, the top airlines. For example, for Mexico, it will sound like covers all Latin American airlines, and there are Azul Airlines and all the others. So you get the idea. Find the problem, use it in the keyword. Actually, Google does a great job in allowing us to do these things with a description. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Brian.
I remember.
Lecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you are.
Yeah.
Great lecture as always. I have a very specific question, and probably you're the one who's going to answer it. There are some industries like travel or an app in the areas definitely from that industry, where people tend to use the basic functionality of the app from time to time, like if you travel once a year.
Yep.
And from the point of, and there are industries close to travel and travel as well,
Yeah.
which have this built-in problem of the keeping the retention rate
Yep.
somewhere.
Exactly.
So how do you keep this retention? How do you entertain your users between the seconds?
That's a great question. Let me give you an analogy. I think I should just switch to Russian, but I should do that in English. In any case, an analogy that I have for you is the following. It's much easier to make the guy who likes to eat more food than it takes to make the guy that doesn't like to eat to start eating. Which translates actually to the point that I have for this thing. It's much easier to find frequent flyers who travel 5 times a day, 5 times a week. The amount is small, but actually they are generating over 50% of all the business travel in the US, Brazil, China, and not Russia, unfortunately, and Europe. So if you focus on those guys, they are ready to spend. The thing happened just a couple of days ago. We have a lifetime subscription, which is also a test right now, which is $75, and we had this purchase from Google Play. Well, if someone uses the Google Play market, they know that purchases are really rare. So it always, it's like, hey, what happened? But there's another problem, that purchase was from India. And actually average income per month in India is $75. It was like, whoa, I made someone hungry. But the explanation, of course, is that I'm targeting the audience that is ready to pay $75 for my service if they like it. And that's actually what I'm talking about. Apple is not the dominant operating system in the smartphone market, but it's a dominant platform in terms of revenue. So if I'm thinking about building an active users base which are really high in value, which, for example, travel 5 times a week and always book a 4 or 5-star hotel, just if that user uses my app frequently, that is enough for me to sell that kind of audience with a 20x coefficient when I'm exiting the project. So you get the idea. Find those. And the other thing, but just as an advice, and I will finish, if you're just starting a business in a mobile app, try to focus on the apps that are at least of weekly usage. The reason I'm doing this and saying is that you will have a lower period that will help you to understand that no one comes back to your app. I mean, for example, if the use case is only twice a year, you will need to wait for 6 months to understand whether the user comes back to you or not. But if you're doing an app that's of daily usage, if the user doesn't use the app for the second day, that means you have a problem with the retention. Basically, the benchmarks are for the daily apps, it's about 50% retention for the second day, but you should have at least 10K users. That means that in the beginning you should have 90% retention rate. And the benchmark for the monthly usage, I mean the apps that are not used frequently, is 50% per month. 28 is great, but the benchmark should be higher than great if you're building a company that's greater than great. Yeah.
Thank you so much.